So yesterday I played in a golf day and one of my playing partners, Jack, was having an absolute nightmare with his iron shots off the fairway. He'd be topping them, he'd be thinning them, hitting them right, hitting them left. And as the first few holes went on, his frustration got more and more and more. And basically, I think more frustrated because he was trying so hard. He'd been trying all the things you maybe heard of, like strike down on the golf ball or make sure I've got to strike the ball then the ground. But none of it was working, mainly because he was falling for the same trap I see so many golfers do time and time again. Now, by the time we got to the 9th hole, he almost quit. I could see him almost thinking, I don't want to play this anymore. So I needed to help. Now, for the back 9, the smile returned. I gave him 3 tips, and I'd love to share with you these tips because step by step, they really helped him get his game back, start striking his irons solid. So let me start now with just tip number 1. So if you can relate to Jack in any shape or form, do this. The first thing I gave Jack was, Jack, stop trying. Start to get some swing back. What he'd been doing is he'd been trying to hit down on the golf ball because his balls were going off in different directions. He'd been tensing up and desperately trying to hit the ball straight. And the first thing you've got to do is this. There are 2 parts to this swing. You have the golf club head, right? And then you have your body. The golf club head should always be swinging beautifully, freely. It should never be controlled. What moves it or controls it is what you do with the body, right? So if your body's not working effectively, that's fine. You need to kind of sort that out. But what you don't do is what Jack and I see so many other golfers doing, which is trying to hang on or steer it. Oh, it's gone left. Oh, I've got to go over here. So the very first thing I did with Jack is this. Jack suffers sometimes with a bit of a hook. So I said, Jack, we're going to play it. Let's play your hook. Just let it go, right? So what we did is I said, look, make some swings. And what I want you to do is a golf swing is this. It's a free flowing motion, right? I'm letting the club swing. We do not direct it in any shape or form. So I said to him, the way I helped him allow the club to throw free, it wasn't, by the way, holding it loosely, which a lot of people think you need to do. It's not that. In fact, your arms want to be loose and pliable, but you want a nice firm grip. What I got him to do was I said, we're not going to worry about where the ball finishes. I want you to make some swings. And your ball, if it curves right to left, we're going to let it happen. In fact, we're going to aim to do that. Make that club swing as freely as you can. Once we've got this club swing freely, then we'll sort out tip 2 and tip 3, which is how the body moves, and we'll help you control it. Now, you can imagine he's a little bit nervous, but the first shot he did on that first hole with driver, he hadn't come in this, it was like a team competition, he hadn't come in at all. And he actually scored on that hole and he helped the team out. And the first thing we did was literally let him swing the club as freely as he could. And I said, Jack, allow that draw naturally to happen. His own words, he said, Danny, that feels effortless. Yes, that's the starting point. That is where you build your foundation from. Create a free swinging club. And now it gives us time to now work on your ball striking and your direction, which moves us into tip number 2. So tip number 2, and let me put this into context. I didn't give him tip number 2 straight away. I needed him to kind of really get the feel of this swinging golf club. So we left it a couple of holes so he got used to it. And it was lovely. The smile was returning just because it just feels so good, it feels effortless. But obviously, just doing that alone won't necessarily transform the consistency. You're still going to have to understand how to work the body effectively. And unfortunately for Jack, he'd been given a little bit of bad advice. He'd been told that he's got to strike the ball then the ground, but how he was doing it was what I see, is a fault I see with so many other golfers, in that they're trying to strike the ball then the ground, but he was doing it by chopping down on the golf ball. And what you notice here about my torso, it's quite forward and ahead. So he would also finish quite low sometimes. It was not functional. He would strike the ball then the ground, but it's not really a golf swing, okay? It's certainly not effortless. The simplest way to strike the ball then the ground is just to understand where your pelvis is. So look at this. If you have a beautifully flowing golf swing, so we keep this, and I move my center of my pelvis eventually through impact over the heel of my lead foot, watch where the club strikes the ground. Much more over here. So ball than the ground, right? But it's functional. Now, if I have my pelvis too far back, which is what I see with people who don't strike it very well, where's the strike point now? I'm still swinging the club freely, backwards and forwards, now it's over here. Notice this. Am I trying to force the club to strike the ground? Am I trying to actively do something to get compression? Absolutely not. I have a free flowing golf swing where all I'm doing is making sure my pelvis is far enough forward so the club naturally strikes the ball, then the ground. And that's what I mentioned to Jack. So what I gave him that made it very, very easy. I said, right, Jack, we're going to keep this club head swinging nice and freely. And what's going to really help you get that tailbone much more towards the target look, and not like you were doing over here, chopping down on it, is when you make a backswing, take your tailbone or this pocket here and start to move it towards the target. As you do this, as you swing the club freely and this pocket now moves towards the target, what you're going to find is you're already giving yourself a head start because the body now wants to fall this way. So what's happened to the pelvis? It's gone forward. You're now immediately increasing likelihood you're going to strike the ball, then the ground. If this pocket doesn't move, which I see with so many golfers, this hip stays here. I'm too much over this side. I've got too much to do to get forward. Most people now will just hit from the top. This pocket now goes over here, and you start striking the ground behind the golf ball, fatting it, thinning it, you name it. So simply put, keep the club head swinging, backwards and forwards, move the pocket towards the target, and just get that simple rhythm in your golf swing. And you'll notice as I'm doing this, at no stage am I trying to hit down on the golf ball by moving this bit over here, the upper center over here. This bit's still staying forward, while this bit of my body stays nice and centered. It's not moving around too much. This is swinging freely. It's my lower body that moves, look, towards the target. This was huge for Jack. He kept the rhythm. He starts to strike the ball, then the ground. Now, the third and final thing I mentioned to him, which kind of really starts to enhance this rhythm, but really started to add the power to his game, back into his game, was making him realize that, again, we're not trying to hit down. In fact, when the club gets to the last parallel in the downswing here, the only thing that moves down towards the golf ball here is the actual club head. The hands here and this lead shoulder, everything now, the hands here at their lowest point, this is going to work upwards, around, and the only thing that comes down to the golf ball is the head. This is a really important point because most players who are struggling with power, struggling with strike, the hands and the body are still working down towards impact. You lose all speed because the handle and the club are going at the same speed. I want you to catapult the club. So you've got a free-flowing swing. Look at this here. As the club comes down, my lead shoulder works up and around. Up and back, basically. Notice this motion. I am working naturally upwards. It's rhythmical. It's what catapults the club. If I do this, what do you notice? All the speed goes. There we go, right? So all matching, this just feels effortless. And like with all my students, it's nothing more satisfying than seeing a student at the end of a game of golf start to smile and have that encouragement to go again, go and practice, but now practice the right things. So striking the ball in the ground is not that difficult. Simply make sure you start off like this. Make sure you've got a beautifully flowing golf swing. Make sure the pelvis is far enough forward on the way down. That doesn't mean this goes forward. The pelvis is far enough forward on the way down. That's going to increase the likelihood that you're going to strike the ground. And then just remember, we aren't going down through impact. The body's actually starting to work upwards through the shot. The only thing that works down is your club head. And you're going to start to feel that effortless golf swing. It'll feel rhythmical, and hopefully you will start to have some more smiles on that golf course. If you enjoy the video, give it a thumbs up. Maybe share it with somebody who may be struggling to strike their irons and the hybrids off the ground. Look, if you want to know how this kind of applies maybe to your driver, check this video out right here. If you enjoyed the video, subscribe to the channel. But until next week, have a wonderful golfing week.